name is Jerry Crowman. I'm the Director of Development at the Judaic Sacred Music Foundation. We were founded in 2014, the same year that Steve was got the commission to do this wonderful symphony. I'm going to turn over to Steve because he's going to give you more details, but I'll have something to say about halfway through the presentation. So thank you very much for coming. Look forward to hearing you.
Great. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Ari. I'd like to, a big thank you for inviting me, and thank you to the Community Scholar Program and all those involved. It's a real honor and privilege to be here, to be able to present to all of you today. I'm going to be talking about this wonderful commission I received from the Judaic Sacred Music Foundation, which I work for. The commission was to compose a 4-movement symphony using the melodies and motives of the High Holy Day services. So let me go ahead and share my screen. We're certainly going to play a lot of music, but I want to give you a little background as well. As Ari mentioned, the foundation that I'm part of is called the Judaic Sacred Music Foundation. We were founded in 2014 by Dr. Robert H. Freilich, who's our president. And he is a wonderful lawyer who has a great love of all things Judaic and classical music. And part of his lifelong dream was to see some of the beautiful melodies that he grew up with in the 1930s and 40s, these very traditional Jewish High Holy Day melodies preserved in symphonic form. So he began his journey on creating the foundation and searching out a composer. Lucky for me, our paths crossed, and so here I am presenting to you. Just so you know, I'm going to present the first 2 movements, which have been recorded with full orchestra, an 83-piece orchestra. As soon as the pandemic is, the restrictions are lifted, I will be back to record in Europe the final 2 movements. So I only have 2 to share with you today, but we'll have plenty to cover. Before I talk more, just to give you a little bit about my background, let's hear some music, because that's what you're here for. I'm going to play for you about 2 minutes of the recording session we did in Bratislava back at the end of 2017. And you can just this will warm up your ears a little bit, and maybe you watched it. I think Ari posted it for everybody, but let me go ahead and play just a little bit for you. Here we go. So it was like you want to have it like the day they like yeah, I didn't want it too choppy, so that's why so yeah, feel free. right, so hopefully that gets your ears warmed up a little bit to the sound and style, the harmony, the orchestration in the symphony. All right, so happy to present that to you. Let me, if you would, please let me tell you a little bit more about the project. I am the composer and artistic director for the Judaic Sacred Music Foundation. And this commission we feel is very, well, let me tell you a little bit about the foundation first. So we basically have 3 mission points in our foundation. Number 1, to create new music compositions based on Judaic tradition. Number 2, to produce annual events and concerts. And number 3, we're doing educational enrichment opportunities for students and adults of all ages. So what you're seeing today, being invited to CSP, is part of our 3rd effort, our educational enrichment. A little bit of background about myself. I received my PhD in music composition from UCLA. I've been teaching collegiate music for about 20 years. And I've taught at a number of schools around Los Angeles. And I teach at UCLA Extension in the film scoring program. I'm not personally a film composer, but I was brought on to teach the music theory and composition core there. It's a wonderful, wonderful program, and thrilled to be there. I am used to lecturing on a wide variety of topics with music, from anything from music appreciation for non-musicians to graduate level studies. So this has kind of been, classical music has been just a big part of my life. I grew up in Los Angeles in the Woodland Hills area. I was bar mitzvahed at Temple Aliyah, if you know that area, that corner of the world. And in my mid-20s, I attended a very magical place. Maybe some of you here in Southern California know this place, in Simi Valley, which is north of Los Angeles, called the Brandeis Bardeen Institute. And it's like this kibbutz. It's beautiful acres and acres of beautiful countryside. And the collegiate program is, they targeted people in their kind of 20s to stop their world and come and live there for a month and immerse themselves in Judaism. And it was such a profound experience for me that I made 2 decisions that summer. I said, I will go back to music, which I had stopped, with an emphasis on Judaism, Judaic music, and I will go to Israel for 1 year to study. And that's exactly what I did. A short while later, I found myself in Israel studying for 1 year in what was called the World Union of Jewish Students, WUJIS. Maybe some of you know it. It was then housed in Arad, and now I think it's in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. But it was a wonderful, I'd never been to Israel, and just to be there for a year, I still felt the effects of it. It was just deeply, profoundly effective on me. And I came back to Los Angeles, went to UCLA, got my doctorate in composition, started teaching at UCLA Extension. And then lucky for me, my paths crossed with the Judaic Sacred Music Foundation and this commission to write this symphony. Right now, in preparation for the High Holy Days, we're doing a lot of programming because the symphony is obviously, like I said, based in the music of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So that's basically what you're going to see today. Kind of, I'm going to play parts of the symphony, talk about it, and share with you. But working for the foundation, I also talk on other topics as well: Judaic classical music, music appreciation, even music theory. If a school has a program, and we're happy to do that kind of programming. Our website is Judaic Sacred Music Foundation, and all the music you're going to hear today is on our website. And so please feel free to browse around and look. Would love for you to come visit. Now, this commission to compose a symphony was very challenging. You know, I've been going to High Holy Day services all my life, but I was not trained as a Hazan. And as soon as I started, I realized how much I didn't know. And I engaged in a very lengthy process. They gave me a year to study. I studied with cantors, rabbis, I got cantorial books, I got music books, and I did a very intense study of the music of the High Holy Days. And, you know, I only scratched the surface because there's so many different traditions all over the world, but really focusing on, you know, Eastern European and Ashkenazi melodies. We feel that this symphony is very unique And that in all our research and even talking with cantors after cantors and rabbis, there doesn't seem, at least in our research, to be a four-movement symphony that uses in all of its movements melodies of the Jewish High Holy Day services. Of course, there's a lot of beautiful Judaic music, classical music, even on the High Holy Days, but a symphony, we have not been able to find. It might be out there, but we have not come across it yet. And let me tell you a little bit about how I organized the first movement. And before I do, let me also say this. We'll have a couple of times where we'll stop and have some Q&A. If you have a question or a comment, please write it in the comment box, and our Jerry Krautman, our Director of Development, will read them. And if you have any questions, please feel free. We would love to hear from you about that. So let me talk about the first movement. I'll talk about all the movements, but right now for the first, I had to decide, do I want to present melodies, for instance, chronologically, start with Rosh Hashanah and then move into Yom Kippur. And I played around a lot as I studied, and I had a very elaborate system of pinning melodies. And eventually what I came up with is I said, I want to touch upon in the first movement some of the main important prayers of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. And so, for instance, you will hear a bit of the Hatzi Kaddish, Sha'arei Shamayim, which is usually sung at the Ne'ilah service in Yom Kippur. It's the end, but the words, open the gates of heaven and hear my prayer, I kept coming back to it. I said, I want to start the symphony with that idea. And there's a beautiful melody. Some of the melodies you might know, some you might not. If you know them, that's wonderful. And if you don't, then you'll be exposed to them. And that's part of the goal of the symphony. I do the very traditional Barchu, the call to worship, Zoch Reinu, which is, of course, remember us for a good life. And Rosh Hashanah Yikar Tevun, who will live, who will die, who will prosper, who will not. And so I'll talk about that. And then the Shema, a very specific High Holy Day melody for the Shema is in the first movement. So what I'd like to do right now is, usually when I do these live, I would play the piano in front of everybody. In fact, we'd had plans for me to come down to do this live, but of course, then we're dealing with COVID. So what I've done is I have a little piano version just to warm you up to the melodies, and then you hear the symphony. So the first melody that you hear is from the Kaddish. And it's an interesting place to start, but I felt when composing it, as soon as you hear this melody, this motive, you'll know exactly what holiday you're in. So here's what it sounds like. So that's how the opening of the Kaddish goes, and that's how the symphony starts. I then go into a series of melodies. The first one, as I mentioned, is this prayer, Sha'arei Shamayim, that is sung at the end of Yom Kippur. And I love the idea of starting the symphony with open the gates of heaven and hear my prayer. Now, there are many beautiful melodies. You might know this, you might not, but here is the melody I chose. And then the Barchu. So let's just deal with the first. I'm going to deal with just the first three melodies of the symphony. It'll be, about 3 minutes of music, 3.5 minutes of music, and you're going to hear all those melodies. But you'll hear how I treated it orchestrally, with counterpoint, with textures, with harmonies, and putting it in a classical form. I didn't want the symphony to be a medley. I want to be kind of the real traditional symphony where you take ideas and you develop them, you expand upon them. So here's the opening you hear those three melodies presented. Enjoy, please. right, so that's the first few minutes and three themes of the first movement. Let me play for you the other themes that I selected. And this first movement, if you know classical music, is a traditional form called Sonata Allegro form, where it's an ABA form. In the first day, you present themes. In the B section, you develop them. And then in the return of A, you recapitulate the ideas, you bring them back. So this first part is presenting all these themes. So here is Zochrenu, and then it will be followed by Baruch Hashanah Yikatevun and the Shema. You'll hear it on piano, and then you'll hear what I do in the symphony with it. All right, so we go back to the symphony. And let me skip ahead. Again, all the music is on on our website, but it's a little bit long to play it in one session. So let me play for you a little bit of Zochrenu. Then we'll go into Baruch Hashanah Yikatevun. And what I did with Baruch Hashanah Yikatevun, you know, who will live, who will die, who will prosper, etc. I made it into a big march. And it ends with the big shofar blast. And then when you hear the Shema, what I did is I decided to do some musical symbolism. So I put Shema, you only hear it one time in the middle of the symphony. The idea is that I wanted to symbolically put God right in the middle. And imagine you're singing along in your head, where you would recite the words Adonai Echad, our Lord is one, God is one. I only have one instrument. It's the only place in the whole movement where everything drops out but one. And these are just some of the tricks that composers use to embed some musical symbolism. So I hope you enjoy. I'll let it play for a couple more minutes, and then we'll see if you have some questions, and then I'll talk about the second movement. Here you go. right, so after that shofar blast, then we enter what's called the development section, and I chose to play around with the barhu. That's kind of the main idea of the development section. And then we end up with the Shema. So here's a little bit of that. All right, and so in the interest of time, I'll stop there. But again, I hope you'll take a listen on our website. Let me ask Jerry if there are any questions or anything that I can answer. We'll take a few minutes, and then I'll go into the second movement. Or Ari, if there's anything you want to say.
I'm happy to let Jerry moderate. I'll ask maybe one or two questions, and then leave the rest to Jerry. A bunch of people asked, why Bratislava? Why was that the place where you recorded your first? You did your first two recordings.
We seem to get that a lot. That question, and it's basically when we were looking to record. Unfortunately, I'm not happy to say this, but to record in the United States is extremely expensive and was outside of our budget. The Eastern European orchestras are not only fantastic, they're incredibly affordable. You can work with them for like a fraction of the cost than it costs to do here in the States. Now, I had a good friend in the industry who worked with them before and actually works for them. And so I had the talks with them. I listened to the recordings. I was blown away at how good they are. And so that's where we recorded. And now we have a very nice relationship with them and the conductor. And I'd like to head back there and record there with them. But it was basically, we wanted the best orchestra for the best price. And that's who we found.
And why didn't you just do the whole recording while you were there? Was it a time or money thing? What was or had it not all been written yet?
Yeah, it was not all written yet, and we were anxious to just record what I had, and so I just flew there and did that. So, and thank goodness so that we did, because if we didn't do that now, it could be much longer until we have the recording. At least we have this to present. But yes, we wanted to start promoting right away while I was finishing the other two movements, which are done, just not recorded yet.
Okay. So,
any questions?
Jody Wedgett wants to know, what's the difference between a concerto and a symphony? When you say you wrote a symphony, I take it that there are a number of movements. I understand that the individual pairs, but what are you looking for as a musician expressing in the music and the different themes?
So the difference between a symphony and concerto is that a concerto features usually a prominent solo instrument. So imagine a violin concerto where the violinist, the soloist is standing in front of everybody, and the piece was written to feature their soloistic abilities. Or a piano concerto where the piano is out in front, versus a piece of music where there's piano in it in the orchestra, but it's not a concerto. You might see the piano in the back of the orchestra. So a concerto features a solo player that leads, basically. A symphony, it depends on what era you're in, but in general, a symphony is usually a multi-movement work written for a bunch of players. And, it doesn't always have to be the standard strings and woodwinds and brass. I mean, Stravinsky writes a symphony of psalms and writes a symphony of winds, which were woodwinds. Like it can vary, but traditionally, when you think about Tchaikovsky or Brahms or Mozart or Beethoven, a symphony will be 3 to 4 works, three to four movements, different little sections, chapters, expressing a different emotion, and they're usually for about anywhere from 40 players to 80 players, or more, featuring strings and woodwinds and brass. So multi-movement idea. I hope that answers it.
Another question here. Was there a particular composer of the traditional music or chazan on which you patterned your themes?
Music.
That was Arnold Sugarman asked that question.
It's a very good question. So not specifically a specific chazan, although I did a lot of listening on YouTube and the Milken Archive of Music, and listened. In fact, I did my own transcription of Jan Pierce singing Kol Nidre, because I couldn't find his music, so I wrote it out by hand. I listened over and over again on YouTube. But as I mentioned earlier, our president, when he talked about the commission with me, really wanted me to use some of the melodies that were close to his heart that he grew up with. And preserve those. So that led it as well. As far as composers, Jerry, was it a question about composers' influence?
Yes.
Yeah. So you could tell hopefully by my style, if you're a concert goer in classical music, it's a very, what we call tonal work. It's a very traditional, old fashioned type of sound. It might even sound cinematic to you. A lot of people say that, but I definitely pull from the tradition of Beethoven and Tchaikovsky and Brahms and late Romantic music. You might even hear some elements of Mahler in there, where I happily borrowed from and learned from and included. And I do it happily. I'm always been a tonal writer, and I'm comfortable in that area, that type of sound.
Several questions. Ellen Prince asks, any plans for local philharmonics to perform? And also a lot of people want it to be performed in Orange County.
I would love that. We are definitely, well, let me say this. So thank you. There's a huge compliment and a vote of confidence. We are very fortunate to have partnered with a wonderful orchestra here in Los Angeles called the American Youth Symphony. And they're not children, they're young adults, and they're wonderful. And the premiere will be in Royce Hall. Now, we were scheduled for March of this coming year, 21. And now, sadly, we are going to do it a year from March 22. We're all praying that we will be able to congregate in a year and a half in concert halls. Definitely would love for you all to be there, but we're also looking to expand and get performances in as many places as possible. So if there are opportunities for that and you want to talk to us about it, please let us know. Contact us through the website or write your information in the chat box. We will follow up with you. That would be wonderful. I know Orange County has a tremendous music program down there. Absolutely. Why don't we take one more question, and then I'll get in just in the interest of time. Is that okay?
Sure. Howard Merowitz and Robert Weisgrau ask why not incorporate real shofar into the orchestra?
The shofar call, the real shofar call. Yeah. I thought about it early on. It's such a good question, and what I decided is I'd never written a symphony before, and I'm an unknown composer, and for anybody to perform this, if we were lucky enough to get a premiere, we didn't even know if that was going to happen. The more extended instruments, or people say, why don't you use choir and soloists and this, the bigger it gets, the more unlikely someone would want to take a chance on it. So I decided for this first venture out, I would keep the orchestra size small, and I would just represent the shofar with the brass and other instruments like that. And hopefully this will not be the last Judaic piece that I write. I've always thought about using shofarot in the symphony. But let me say this. Some people have asked before, do any themes come back? The only thing that comes back in all four movements is the shofar. And even in the slow movement, I do the still small voice of the shofar. It's an oboe. It's very quiet. And I have a piano version. Hopefully I'll be able to play just a few minutes because it's not recorded, but I have my piano playing of it, a recording. So hopefully I can get that. All the movements have shofar. Why don't we do this? These are wonderful questions. Just in the interest of time, let me move to the second movement because I'd like to play for you the whole thing intact. It's only about 9 minutes, and just talk to you about it real quickly.
Steve, you want to do the...
Yes. I'm sorry. I forgot one very important thing. I want to invite you all to a program that our foundation is putting on September 13th. It's a celebration of the music of Aaa Holy Days, and Jerry Krautman, our development director, is going to tell you about it right now.
It's on September 13th. It starts at 7 o'clock in the evening. It's a 2-part program. First part is at 7 o'clock, which is a special program about the Cantor's discussion of high holiday music. And then the second hour, the 8 o'clock program, will be a program similar to this, but different. So if you wanted to see this and you came back on the 13th, you would see something different. Steve?
Yeah, so, at our foundation, in this time of social distancing and restrictions, we said, let's try to create community. We had this idea, let's see if we could bring together as many cantors in the LA area as possible. And we thought, well, maybe we'll get, a couple, and we'll see. We were blown away at how many people were excited. We have an incredibly stellar lineup and musicians, including Dr. Noreen Green of the LA Jewish Symphony, who's going to participate. The first hour, we're going to be talking about Jewish music. There's going to be some performances on solo instruments. And yes, the second hour, I'm going to do a similar presentation that you're seeing today on the symphony. It's a free event, and all you have to do is go to our website and register and spread the word. We'd love to see you there. And our goal is to create community, bring people together, and uplift all of our spirits. So thank you, Jerry.
Okay, it's all yours.
So let me go ahead and share my screen again, and let me talk real quickly about the second movement. So the second movement in a symphony is sometimes it's a fast movement, sometimes it's a slow movement. I decided to go fast. I said, let's go slow a little bit later. And I knew that I wanted to use this prayer called Kianu Amacha, which is a responsorial prayer that, God, it's like God is our king, we're the servants, God is the shepherd, we're the sheep, etc. And there's some very famous melodies, but I'll play for you. I'll introduce the one that you're going to hear. And it's the form is sort of a rondo, a quasi rondo. Rondo means the theme keeps coming back over and over again. So the melody I chose for Kianu Amacha will keep coming back. And the other prayers I decided to use were all prayers of Hallel, praising God. And at the end of the movement, as I was writing, during the sketching, I said, I need more, but there's not enough room. It's going to be a 20-minute second movement. So I decided to quote 3 very well-known moments of Melech al Kol Haaretz, Adon Olam, and Yigdal. Now, you might know those prayers, you might not. You might know the melodies, you might not. But again, you'll be exposed. The video will give the prompt. So the idea is basically Kianu Amacha keeps coming back. Now, what melody did I use for Kianu Amacha? You might know this melody. I got this off YouTube, and here's someone singing with guitar. And, this is the melody I used.
כי אנו עמך ואתה אלוהינו אנו ענך ואתה אבינו אנו עבדיך ואתה אדוננו אנו גאלך ואתה חלקנו.
All right, so I see some of you actually singing along, which is wonderful. So this is the melody that I used. And again, what you will hear is that melody come back over and over again. And in between it, I quote other melodies that you may know or you may not, but at least, again, you'll be exposed to them and hear them. And then those 3 quotes at the end of Melech al Kol Haaretz, Adon Olam, and Yigdal, and a final statement of Kianu Amacha. So I'll play this uninterrupted, and I hope you enjoy, and then we'll have time for a few more questions. All right, and so you have heard the entire second movement, and I know we are always, you know, a little bit short on time, but what I thought I'd do is maybe present a little bit of the, talk about the last two movements real quickly, play a little bit of the piano, and then we can finish off with whatever questions or discussion you want to have. Is that okay, Ari? Okay, so you might be, I hope you enjoyed that, and you might be asking, hey, where's Kol Nidre and all of this? Well, I knew, of course, I wanted Kol Nidre for the slow movement, and we haven't recorded it yet, but I do have, like I said, a piano version of myself playing, and I couple it with something called the Grand Allegro, and it's a double variation. You hear Kol Nidre, the Grand Allegro over and over again in variation, but I start in the middle of the Kol Nidre. I start with a very kind of famous passage, and then towards the middle, you get the Kol Nidre at the beginning. So I kind of deconstructed that way. And you might also be asking, where's Avinu Malkeinu? So I always knew from the beginning of the composing that Avinu Malkeinu would be in the last movement. But which melody? There's so many wonderful, beautiful melodies. There's a very traditional one, Avinu Malkeinu, like, you know, but there's other beautiful melodies. And so I wrote, I rewrote, I reworked, and I couldn't make up my mind. And so I decided to use three very different Avinu Malkeinus and counterpoint with each other, coupled with some other melodies and shofar blasts. And what I want to share with you is I'll play for you just maybe the first 3 minutes of the slow movement, where you hear Kol Nidre and a little bit of the Grand Allegro. And then we'll finish with some comments. Would be lovely. It's a real pleasure to be here and present to you. So here's a little bit of the third movement. And again, imagine, I know you're not going to hear the orchestration, but imagine a much more reduced orchestra. After that, Kiano Amacha, the big ending that you just heard orchestrally, it gets much more intimate and soft and quiet. And you hear a lot of solo instruments like horn and flute and solo violin and harp. And as we move through. So again, just to maybe the first 3 minutes. All right, so that's a little bit of the third movement. I hope you enjoyed. And Ari, do we have time for just a few questions?
Yeah, can I start with a few based
yes,
on my
please.
perceptions as well? So is this music downloadable? I have a Elo, soundtrack that I play during the month before Rosh Hashanah, where I drive around, pull down my window so people can hear that I'm preparing for the holidays. But if this is on your website, is it downloadable? And if it is downloadable, is your piano stuff included as well in a download so that we can listen to it?
It's not downloadable on the website, but I can send to you.
Okay, so I can share it with our people to download.
Yes.
This is an excellent way actually to teach kids both about high holidays and symphonies. And if I were at school, like Tarbut V'Torah Jewish Day School, or any Jewish Day School, I would start the year off by having music appreciation or music education, where they teach, where you would teach, someone like you would teach about symphonies and using this as the composition, because it's a 2-for-1. So I don't know if you're doing that. Yeah, I know you do a student education, but it would be an awesome way to learn both.
We are doing some doing this presentation for some schools, but what we find, especially right now, so many schools are struggling to figure out fall. They're at the breaking point. But what's nice is, even if we do this past Rosh Hashanah, if a school is interested, it still would be a nice program to talk about symphony and Rosh Hashanah, even if it's off season for the high holidays.
It makes symphonic music very relevant to all of us. Even kids have heard these melodies. Let's focus on the melodies for 1 second. I noticed these are all Ashkenazi melodies. So have you explored Sephardi melodies, and are you for other works that you're working on, or are you kind of working within the Ashkenazi music framework in general through the foundation?
The foundation is open to all music, of course, but the symphony was specifically, again, our president had this dream of, he grew up in Boro Park of Brooklyn area, and he wanted the melodies that he remembers Koussevitzky singing and, all these great cantors. He wanted those specifically preserved. And so that was the specific commission. But I love Sephardic melodies. I love Ladino music. I'm open, but I grew up Ashkenazi. Those are the melodies I know most of. I'm not fluent in all the other melodies.
But I mean, can you tell us what other projects that you're working on through the foundation? And my question was, in regard to other projects, may there be Sephardi type music?
Oh, yes. Yes, we have a lot of things in the works. So yes, we are, again, the foundation is not style specific or denomination. We're not, we're not a religious organization in the sense that, we're working with Reform or Orthodox synagogues, conservative, all over the place, but also same thing with the Sephardic Ashkenazi. Absolutely. We always felt that the premiere of the symphony this coming March was going to be the first thing that happened, the first concert. And so all our focus was on that. We're finishing the recording and getting the premiere done, and then people might know about the symphony. Of course, COVID turned everything upside down. And so we're trying to say, how can we move forward with other projects while we're waiting for the premiere? So for instance, while we're doing all this High Holy Day preparation, we've already begun to commission other composers for a virtual Hanukkah concert this December. We're going to have details about that on our September 13th event, and it will eventually be on our website. So if you register at our website, you can get information about that. It will be kind of an intimate concert for these 3 new composers. Will be writing pieces for voice and Hebrew text based in Hanukkah, and the style is very open. And then, yes, we're looking already forward. We've had preliminary discussions about Passover, and I never thought it would be that way. I thought the symphony would be the first premiere, but we must keep moving forward. And so I would love to interact more with the Sephardic community as well. Absolutely. I haven't done it exactly yet, but it's certainly on the table.
Let's see. I think I had a few questions I wanted to follow up with. Who supports you? I mean, are you supported by one main generous funder, or are you supported by nonprofits, or is it mostly individuals like people in this program? And how can we support you?
We're happy that Jerry is here. Jerry Krautman is our wonderful, wonderful, superb director of development. Jerry, take it away.
So although we're founded by our founder, we are open to donations for all groups. We recently received a nice grant, and we're not only are we trying to get community built, but we also want to get our name out and tell people about the work that we're doing. So if you go to our website, we can take funds from our website. If you put your contact information in the chat and you want to be followed up with, or if some of you seem to have a lot of musical knowledge, if you want us to Steve to follow up with you and have a conversation about the inner workings of the symphony and how it came to being and the specific musical questions you've had, we love to answer those questions as well.
So one thing I wanted to mention was also thank Francine Wenhart, who's on this program, because Francine, I don't know whether Francine had heard the actual program before, but she had mentioned that we should host you. So thank you, Francine, in addition to Joyce Pius Chambers. And then a question, we have Cantor David Reinwald on with us, one of our local cantors. And I know from my wife who's working on the online programs, because almost all synagogues, I know other than maybe Orthodox, are going to be online for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Can they access and use some of your music in their services or to market their, if they attribute to you as well? Is that something you're interested in? Because they're, like you can ask Cantor Reinwald, he's preparing stuff. And so sometimes you do an ad, and to have like your music in the background would be so relevant.
The answer is absolutely yes. Music is one of those wonderful gifts from above that brings people together. I would never restrict that, certainly not at this time, not for the holidays. That's not what the symphony is about. So if you would like that, I would love to have a meeting with you, a dialogue with you. Please email us through the website, but also, Ari, is it possible if people are writing questions in the chat, will I be able to respond to them eventually, maybe next week if there are people that want me to respond to them? Is that allowed, or?
Yeah, I can figure out how to get you. I can download the chat and send it to you, or people can send me emails directly and I can send them to you, and we can facilitate it that way, and then you can be in a relationship with those people directly.
That would be wonderful. We've basically been focusing on LA, and Ari has just put together such a spectacular program. We could not wait to do this program, and now I feel like we have listeners and friends down in Orange County and Irvine. I'd love to meet you all and talk with you. And certainly we're open to ideas. So thank you very much.
Two questions that related, I guess. One is, who owns, this is a question from Howard Merowitz, who owns the rights to these compositions? Is this you or the foundation? That's the first question.
So I retain copyright, but the foundation owns the recording. And the foundation has permission to use. And so when we commission new works, the composers will retain their copyright, but we can use the music for our own, promotion. That's how it works.
Yes, my final question is, how has participating in this project changed you in any way? It's such a, I haven't been asked that before. It's an overwhelming question. Let me say this, it's a dream come true, and I pinch myself every day that I get to compose. And now that, I always had this dream of, the first time people heard it would be live, and it was very uncomfortable for me to play part of it, but I realized that COVID in this time, we need to do that. So I've overcoming my shyness with it, and the fact that we can do this has given me so much encouragement. I was very nervous about composing this. What if these melodies, this holiday doesn't need a symphony at all, and what could I possibly do? And I really struggled with that. I had some very serious talks with my rabbi about it. I don't think I could do it. I don't think this. And the encouragement from whether it's Orthodox cantors or even non-Jews has been overwhelming. I'm very humbled. I never take it for granted. I'm so appreciative. And I think sometimes, okay, maybe I'm a composer, I wake up sometimes doubting myself, but I wake up after a meeting like today, seeing all of you smiling and humming along. I go, okay, maybe I'm a composer. Like, that sounds crazy, but I mean it sincerely.
from my heart. So it's given me encouragement, and it's given me an opportunity to promote Jewish art and culture. I always say that food and music are the best ambassadors. You know, maybe food first, because no one wants to be hungry, not even on Yom Kippur, but music really brings people together. So.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing your time with us. Thank you for sharing your composition with us.
Absolutely.
We look forward to hearing more about the details of upcoming projects you're working on. I will share whatever you send me with our group. If you send me the music, they can download it. That would be great. And, you know, we have people online that are committed to have you down here and have the Pacific Symphony do it.
Would love that, absolutely.
In the near future, before the high holidays. Maybe, you know, I don't know how long it takes. We have to figure out whether this is a 2-year thing we have to start working on now, is my guess. But
absolutely, we'd love it.
Okay. So thank you, everybody. I want to thank everybody who participated. Sorry for changing the time on you, but you guys made it. We had a nice group. We learned a lot. I hope this put you in the mode for holidays. No, you're not done. You still have to fast. You still have to do Rosh Hashanah, but you can start listening to this music over again the next few days, next few weeks. Rosh Hashanah is with us in less than 3 weeks, I understand. And we did a program on the music of Ishai Ribo. So I'll share Ishai Ribo's Avodah service with you on one hand, and we've got now the symphony on the other hand, and there's everything in between. Maybe, Steve, I'll ask you to email me some of your favorite pieces that have been done in history with high holiday music that you've come across, just a few of them, and I'll share them with our group. And we'll continue to enjoy the music and prepare ourselves for the new year. Happy New Year, everybody, almost. Happy Elul, at least, for sure. And look forward to lots of Elul-related programs with you in the next few weeks, okay? So we'll see you on Tuesday, hopefully, and Wednesday.
Thank you so much. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the beautiful day. Yana, I see you, and a lot of music people here. Thank you, Marion, for letting us honor you today. Thank you, Francine Wenhart again, and Joyce for the recommendation. And Steve, keep safe and keep healthy and keep producing great music for us to enjoy. It's really terrific. Thank you, everybody. Have a good Sunday. See you soon. Bye-bye. Bye, Phyllis. That's your cousin Phyllis. Steve, that's your cousin Phyllis right there. Okay, hold on. I'm unmuting Phyllis for 1 second. Phyllis, I'm unmuting you, Phyllis. Do you want to say hi to Steve for 1 second? Okay. Well, Phyllis is trying to unmute herself, but you have to press the, there you go, Phyllis. Okay. You can say hi to your cousin. There you go.
I've rarely seen you. I did see you years ago, hear your music. It was a pleasure to hear your music, the segments of it, and the ideas that you have. And I want to call you.
Please do. It's been too long. It's so great seeing you. So great seeing you. Thank you.
CSP. We reunite families. That's one of the things we do as well. Okay, guys. Yeah. I'll see you later. Bye, Sheldon and Suster, and bye, Ida. Bye, hi, Marilyn Gross and Yana and Kristen Texier and Jeff Podless. You really are regular. I don't see Debbie, but I think I see her arm. So okay. Okay, guys. Take care. Bye, Jerry. Thank you for your help today. Bye, Leonie.
Bye.
Good to see you. Bye, everybody. Gonna have some lunch. Bye.